welcome to the podcast. I know I say this a lot, but you guys, Alice Seuffert is in the house. She's the Director of Communications at Mahtomedi Public Schools in Minnesota. And this is pretty much a masterclass in social media for schools, especially a department of one. Okay. She has about 3,200 students in her school district. She's been there since 2018. And when Alice started out and she heard that she should be posting twice a day on social media, she thought that would never be her. But now she can. And why? Because she's built the systems that make the system work, that gets the content that she needs. She is very driven and focused around her strategic plan and how that fits in with her storytelling. And you guys, Alice even has a gift for us. And I'm not going to talk about it in the interview, but after she said, you know what? My little card that I send out to staff, which she calls, I think, a happy mail. She's going to give us that Canva template. So you guys are going to want to check out all the show notes for some great examples of posts and also for that Canva template. Okay. But we're going to talk through how to get content from staff, how to get content from students, how to get student ideas. Even talking about Facebook and Instagram, how do the content ideas differ? How are they the same? Can you post a reel about something plus photos about something? We're going to talk about it all. And you're going to want to grab a piece of paper because you're going to want to take some notes, I promise you. And you're probably going to want to connect with her via email to grab some of her ideas. I'm just so excited for you to learn from her. I took 2 big pages of notes. I know that you're going to as well. So without further delay, let's just get to this week's K-12 PR tip so then we can get into the interview with Alice. Okay, today's K-12 PR tip is all about adding an Instagram collaborator on your Instagram Reels. So, and you can do this on other posts as well, but I'm going to tell you on Reels. It's a great way, and Alice is going to mention this in her interview of, letting your different groups, maybe your different student groups, really get involved and help your story reach even more people. And the way that you do this is before you publish your reel, you're on your final little screen. It's going to ask if you want to tag people. And when you go to tag people, you can either add a tag or you can invite collaborators. When you invite collaborators, you're going to type in the name of their page and you are going to be able to invite them. They will get a prompt that will allow them to then post that same content on their page. You're going to reach more people. You're going to start building relationships with those groups. So inviting collaborators is a great way to reach even more with the content that you are creating. And you're going to get a bunch more tips in today's episode with Alice. So let's get to it. Hello, Alice. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
You are a featured guest. You're an avid listener. You're joining us from Mahtomedi Public Schools in Minnesota. So, Alice Seuffert, why don't you introduce yourself, share your background, and kind of your role with your school district?
Sure, thank you. So I am the Director of Communications for Mahtomedi Public Schools. We are located on the east side of the Twin Cities in Minnesota. We're right off of White Bear Lake, and our enrollment is about 3,200 students. And I have been in the role of communications here in our district since 2018. So this is my 6th school year with the district.
Okay.
And and prior to that, I have a little bit of a different background that I've brought to this role. So my education, I studied political science and international relations for my undergrad. And for my graduate work, I went to American University in Washington, D.C. for my master's program and pursued international politics. And then career-wise, I worked at the Minnesota State Capitol in the state Senate for 7 years. After that, I worked for a public school lobbying organization and did research and communications there. And then I came to Mahtomedi in 2018. I'd say one very unique part of me is that I'm a freelance writer and television contributor to this is my passion on the side, is that I write for Scary Mommy, and then I also so I've had articles viewed by over 25 million people, and I've also been on TV for going on 15 years because I love to cook, and so I do cooking segments. So I have a very different background that I've brought to school communications that kind of brings in blogging experience, television, and of course political science, and I think that's really helped me bring different perspectives to this role. So.
That is so cool. I've known you for a while and I did not know that. So, big political background. And then you got the Scary Mommy blog. You've got cooking segments. We're talking to Rachel Ray here. I love it. And then 3,200 students that you've seen, experience this position since 2018. What led you to grabbing this role with a school?
So I live in the community. I have an elementary student and a middle school student. And I moved here for the schools and the community. And at the time when I moved here, I was working for a nonprofit organization that advocated for public schools at the state legislature. And so I was very familiar with different schools and had that background of knowing, like, that sort of endpoint of when you're advocating and working on legislation. But I was very curious. I did have the communications and research background, and there was a position that was open here. Prior to my time, they contracted for projects, but didn't have a full-time person working. And
Okay.
so I was very curious about it, and just like, I really honestly wanted something that allowed me to kind of see the day-to-day operations of what teachers and students were experiencing and share that story, because I love telling stories and really getting people to see, and writing and showing people what really happens on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I love that. So, how does social media fit into your role? I'm assuming you're a one-person shop.
Correct. I'm a one person department. I always joke my department, but it's just me. So I relate a lot to, I think, a lot of people that are part of your membership group that are the one person department, and how do they do it all? Because really, like, my job is like, their social media is just one really small part of what I do on a day-to-day basis. As far as my job is internal and external communications, it's everything from photography and creating videos to working with our local newspaper. It's submitting articles to organizations about legislation. It's really varied. I always, when I meet students, I always say, I'm that little avatar when you get a district email. I'm the person sending that to you. So it's really varied. And I mean, that's part of what I love about my job, is that every day is different and what I'm working on and different projects. And so, but I would say, so I think while social media is, one part, it really is like a web that connects into lots of different other places in my work. So, social media might be a reel that I do, that I put the QR code to watch the reel in a print piece. It might be, something that we're connecting on our website or our electronic newsletters. So, I don't want to dismiss it that it's one part, but because it is interconnected to so many other parts of my job.
Yeah. So, what channels do you run for the school district?
Yeah, so we use at Mahtomedi, we use Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we exited out of Twitter this year. I know that's been a
Okay.
big conversation with members, and I would say, and then we are starting to get active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I would say those are our big channels, and I would say, just as commentary, it's been great exiting off of X and being able to focus on those other channels, and especially, I would say, our primary use is the Facebook and the Instagram.
Okay. And that's really helpful. It's also the conversation still comes up. What do you think is
Yeah.
the most relieve? I mean, did you get a lot of traction on your Twitter account before you decided to shut it down?
No, I mean, and I should say too, like we've exited it in that we're not using it, but we still own our
Okay.
page, and so we still have it. And I'd recommend, anyone thinking about that, still hold on to your account. But um, I mean, it was not a lot of engagement for the effort, and I guess
Yeah.
I would say too, like back to being a one person department, I really have to think about where my effort is going and where my people are. Like, they weren't on Twitter; they are on Facebook and Instagram, and so that's where I need to connect with them.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit. I know you're part of our membership group, which is got hundreds of schools from across the country, and we do a lot of training. And I learn just as much from you as maybe you guys would learn from me. It's just a great community, and that's when I said, "Gosh, you got to be on my podcast." But I want to ask you something. A lot of people are saying, "Okay, Facebook and Instagram, and obviously you can link those through Meta Business Suite. You're a one-person shop." Do you share a lot of content that is similar in nature on both channels, or do you truly try to tell different stories on Facebook than you do on Instagram? Can you comment on that?
Sure. Yeah, and I would, I'm a very proud member of your group. I would say too, I really appreciate like your humble leadership, and that there you are more than happy to learn from other people, and just like there's a lot of reciprocal learning that happens in our group. But what I would say is I've been kind of trying out some new things, and I think that's what I would recommend. Like, so I don't schedule posts. I like will post like authentically, like at the time. But I would say like it's similar content, but I definitely am doing things a little bit different for both. Like it's not a I when I post it, it's not posting immediate to both channels at the same time. So I'll give you an example. So I really like what my grid looks like. Like I want my grid to look a certain way on Instagram. So I'm very strategic about what photo I'm picking for that cover for the post or even a reel cover. So it might look different on Facebook. If I want to catch people a different way, I might use a different first image. Image sizing, like Facebook, I can have images all different ways. And I think with Instagram, I really like the square crop on a photo, so I'll tend to do that. One thing I'll share that like I've been playing with is the use of reels and cross posting. So I do have my Instagram account set up to cross post to my Facebook for reels and for stories. I will say one thing with stories is that it's been kind of inconsistent how it shows up sometimes. So I'm doing those again. Like I'm mostly tending to do those just in the individual channels. But what I will say with reels is that I've been testing that out. I wanted to see like reels are really popular on Instagram. What would happen if I just cross posted and would see. So like what I was doing for a while is I would try photos on Facebook and a reel on Instagram. So like you see it in two different, so then it's cross posting to Facebook. They're getting it two ways now. Then now they see the photos of this great new course that we have at the middle school, and then they're also seeing the real time, what does it look like in that class. So I've been playing around a little bit, and yeah, I think I'm going to keep my reels connected to Facebook because I've had a really good response with it. And it's just another way to see what we're doing teaching and learning wise in our district.
Yes. Okay. I love this. This is all really good stuff. So what you're saying, because that's often a question, is like, gosh, should I use these photos if I've got a bunch? Should I just make a reel or should I share the photos? So what you're saying is you do share the photos on Facebook, but then you're also making a reel on Instagram that also shows up on Facebook. So it's in two different formats, but you don't feel like that's a ton of overlap because different viewers like to watch different things with the algorithm. Not everybody sees everything that you post anyway. Sometimes when a parent wants to share a picture of their kid, they're going to share that photo versus maybe a 30-second reel where they show up for, less than a second in it. And so you're
Yeah.
seeing some success with that strategy.
Yeah. And I think it's really important with social media to like try things out and see, so like I'll give you an example of a post that I did where, like, for kindergarten open house, I did a lot of photos. We had a cute, like, little signing table that we did, and I posted a lot of photos on Facebook with that. But then on Instagram, I posted a reel and I used the like a theme song from Willy Wonka that was trending. So that was really a like behind the scenes. What does it look like to go through our kindergarten open house experience? And so parents got and community members got both of those on Facebook. And so like I can't do that. Like again, I'm a one person. I can't do it with everything, but I can be strategic and I can think about it and think what really needs to visually show up as a video versus just photos. And sometimes I don't have video of everything, but I think what I'm seeing is like it's been surprising because there's some where I'm like, oh, that reel didn't do very well on Facebook, and then I just stay consistent, stay the course, tried another one, that one did really well. So
Yeah.
I do think it's important. I mean, to give people some different visuals into what's happening into your school district that way.
Yeah, that is awesome. I'll make sure in the show notes we link to those two specific posts. So you'll see
Sure.
the kindergarten open house photos, and then we'll also see the reel with that Willy Wonka song. And that's one thing people always ask, what songs should we use? So
Yeah.
getting a song example will be really good. So you mentioned the
Yeah.
word strategic. You know, we try to do something strategically, and you've done a ton of work to really relate your strategic plan into your storytelling. So tell
Yeah.
me about that.
I really think when people, whether they get a print piece from you or whether they're looking at posts on social media, they should really know what you're about and your identity. I think you posed to the membership group this year, like what are people seeing in that grid? What does that say about you? And for us, like our strategic plan and our branding is foundational to what we share. And I just think like I think that sometimes people think about strategic planning. It's like a book on the shelf and it doesn't get opened. Um, and for us, I mean, we are living our strategic plan. I mean, that it's embedded into so many different ways. It's really helped me as a one person department to get really clear about what we're sharing and when we're sharing it. So I think for us, it's our identity. Our branding is our identity and who we are, and the strategic plan is who we aspire to be, and that's what we're giving people in lots of different ways through our communications tools.
That is incredible. Strategic planning and putting that into your storytelling. Now, one of the biggest issues, Alice, that you know that our listeners have is getting enough content to share. So what are some of your secrets? I think you have some strategies not only to get content from staff, but also from students. So can you break down those two methods that you've done and we can give helpful tips to our listeners?
Sure. So, in my role as director of communications, I served as the internal facilitator of our strategic plan just this last year in the spring, and then also the last time we did a strategic plan update. And then I also oversaw our branding process. We did a branding process this spring. With our branding process, we worked with the Center for Effective School Operations, primarily with Susan Broad. And so I want to give her credit because she is a key piece of how I established a content calendar this year. And what she did is worked with me on our branding and all of the messages that came out of our branding process. And then also we connected the work that I did on the strategic plan to know what are those key messages that were in the strategic plan as well. So what we did, what I would say is a key piece, both with getting information from staff and students, is having a content calendar that is built around our brand and strategic plan themes each month. So how I use that, so CISO and Susan helped me develop that, and then I had to put it into action with different groups. So I'll start with staff, and I would say one thing that I've always found is that it's hard if you just generally open up a call for stories to people, especially teachers. They're, very humble people that every day they're doing amazing work, and they don't think this is a story, or that's I that's something I just do. And so having that content calendar has been really helpful, because then I can go and say, for February, these are the types of stories I'm looking for. For March, these are the stories I'm looking for. And that can help them get a little bit more focused on why I might get invited to a classroom, or what captions or photos they're sending me. And so I'll share a couple things that I've done with that content calendar this year, primarily with staff. So the first I would say is I'm working directly with our principals in each of our buildings. So each month we have an article that's written by that principal that focuses on that content calendar theme. So I'll give you an example. We're in the month of February right now, and it's about relationships and it's about learning from each other. So it might be parent volunteers, it might be students learning from each other, it might be about community volunteers or parent volunteers coming into the classroom. And so all of the principals focus on that one story every month,
Okay.
and they work with me on it. So I might work with them collaboratively to take pictures for it, or they might be doing it independently one month, but the next month they loop me in for different assistance. So I would say being able to have that principal who really can see from an educator's perspective what is happening in their building that's built around the strategic plan or around our branding really has helped me, because it's just a bigger connection. So I start with the principal, then they're saying, hey, I think you should talk to this teacher, or reach out to this group, or and then so for me it just like has snowballed into really great stories this year and more connections with staff. So I started with the principals. The next thing I would say that I've done is I've started a communications newsletter to our staff. And
Okay.
so in that, I'm giving, and I'll give you a link to it so you can share it so people can see what kind of content I'm sharing. But for example, I gave like a communications tip on like how you should build your email signature. But then in there, I also said, hey, check out this post that got 91,000 connections, and I can see the analytics and I can see how many people clicked on it, and they're so curious. And then it's, hey, here are the themes I'm looking for, here's a Google form, or just send me an email to submit your story. So I'm cross promoting the social media that I'm doing with our staff so they can see, hey, wow, that was really cool, that reached a lot of people and that told our story. So I would say that's been effective. If you're not on your building listservs, get on them, because that is a top way for me to chase stories. So I'll give you an example, and it's this 91,000 reach post that so in Minnesota, our Department of Transportation, so a government agency, has a really great way to connect with our community in Minnesota. They do a snowplow naming contest. And so one of our teachers entered in a snowplow name, Taylor Drift, and it was chosen. And so it was just purely fun. He's a social studies teacher, and it was a fun way for him to talk to students about engaging and in government and the way they're engaging with the public. It was purely fun, and he was like, it's just a joyful post. I'm like, I love joyful posts, like that's what we want. So to be able to share that, I got that because I'm on the listserv and I saw him share like just the funny story about it. So I would say that's a big thing. And then I would say the last thing for staff, one thing that I'm really working on is gratitude with our staff. So it's sending an email, hey, here's the link to the Facebook post, here's the link to the Instagram post, thanks for that connection or helping me write that caption. And then I've started these, I was going to show you, I've started these, like, they're called happy mails.
Mm-hmm.
And so I send a little mail card to our staff, and like this is for January, and it just like has a bunch of the images that were on social media actually, and it just says thank you for being a key piece in telling our story at Mahtomedi Public Schools. And I send them this personal card, and then I've started buying gift cards with my own money and just raffling off gift cards each month, just as a small thank you, because I think sometimes, especially when you're a one person, you think like, oh, I'm not the only storyteller, and you really want, people to participate. And I think it's beneficial to focus on the many people who do help you, like whether it's, photos or captions or anything like that. So I would say those are the things that I'm doing with staff right now that that have really made an impact in the last few months of like really doing well with our social media and getting content.
Okay, working with principals, you've got a communication newsletter to staff. You can chase some stories because you're paying attention to what's going on in the school's emails or the listserv and showcasing gratitude. And I just got a question for you on those personal gift cards that you're kind of raffling off. What kind of money are you putting on there? Is it $5 or $10 for a coffee or
It's $10, and we have an alumna that owns a coffee shop in our town. So for me, it's just supporting her work and what she's
okay?
doing as a small business owner. So it's just enough to get a cup of coffee. So
Yeah, and that can be enough. And although I
yeah.
don't think it should have to come out of your personal pocket, sometimes it can make your job a lot easier, and so it's worth it to be able to just spend 20 bucks and give out a couple of those gift cards. So I love it. Okay, so that was staff. Now we're gonna quick jump into some student ideas.
I love making reels and putting content on Instagram. I think that's like, I mean, that's part like a passion for me. I just really enjoy that social media platform. And I will say, I've had a lot of success. And I've shared with you when you add student groups as contributors to those posts. One thing I've done is I've actually reached out to them before I post it. And I'll just send them a direct message on Instagram and just say, hey, I'm posting this. I would love for you to accept being a contributor because it'll help get this story out or this information out. Um, One of the successful reels that we've shared this year was about care closets. So we have closets for students that have any needs related to food, clothing, um, feminine hygiene products. Like we have these closets in all of our schools. And so at the high school, it's, new this year. And so I wanted to really get that message out and let students know how to access it. I think the reel is like 30 seconds. It's really fast. It was put to trending audio, and I contacted groups ahead of time, and it was a very popular reel and it was because I think I made that connection with students, and I've done that a couple times, and I would highly recommend that. And it doesn't just have to be student groups; it can be any group that you make a contributor to that. And I think why it's beneficial is because that reel then populates into their feed and their grid. So I would say that's, and again, you're making all sorts of new connections, especially with students who, like, I feel really proud that students share our content. I think that's like a really big accolade for us of just that we're making, really high quality content, but content that's engaging with different age groups too.
Yeah.
Um, I have an internship program at our high school, and I would say that's my really big way that I'm working with students to get content. And so I have 9 interns. I also have an intern who graduated a couple of years ago and is still engaging with writing content for me too. So I would say those are really my successful ways of getting students. And again, back to my strategic plan and our content calendar, like I pull that out with the students. Okay, this month, this is what we're focusing on. What are some of your ideas? So in March, we're talking about passions and student, academic interests and extracurricular interests and passions. So I posed that I had a team meeting this month with my students, and I said, okay, let's brainstorm. What are some things that you think really should be told that reflect this? And that's where I have a Google Sheets project grid with my students. I plug in their ideas, I plug in things I want told, and they get to pick their projects and then work on them. They get credit. I mentioned my intern who is, she's at the University of Wisconsin-Madison right now in a journalism program. And she came back for like J term, and she's like, I'd love to get more experience. And I was like, okay, I have a writing piece I'd like you to do. It's on the cover of our local newspaper today. So I mean, that it's really, I mean, if you're thinking about an internship program this year, like go for it. It takes a little time to set up, but really, like, I'm just seeing so many great social media stories coming out of it. Students get, writing credit that, I always credit them for the posts that they make. And so I would say that has been my really strong way of getting student voice and student submitted stories that way.
How often do you meet with those interns?
So my internship is built like it's kind of, I think of like three pillars to it. So one is projects based, so they help create content. So whether they're writing articles, taking photos, creating graphics. The second part is career presentations. So I bring in different people from our community to do career presentations that have a communications angle to them. And then the third part are learning sessions. So we're doing a learning session this Friday on confident public speaking because that's what students wanted to learn about. So those three areas, I would say we're meeting about 3 to 4 times a month. I have
Okay.
a team meeting once a month, but I'm doing a lot of email conversations, and we're using our school district apps like our Google apps. So we use it. We have a Google folder where we're sharing the spreadsheet. They each have a folder where they're putting their content. And then I'm sharing, like we work in Canva, so we're sharing, Canva graphics and things like that. But I would say there's probably 2 career presentations a month, 1 learning session, and then 1 to 2 team meetings a
Okay.
month that I'm holding.
Okay.
Our high
Awesome.
school we're kind of lucky at our high school. We have a dedicated time called flex time on a daily basis that runs for about 25 minutes. And so I utilize that flex time. It's a time where students can decide, whether they need academic support or want to do enrichment or career exploration activities. And so that time is when I hold these events.
Okay. That makes sense. That's similar to what I am doing, but I just really love the way that you've got your themes down. So basically, on a 12-month calendar, you kind of have those themes, and then that helps drive your content. And then as these students get involved, then they kind of understand, okay, this is what I could create. So we could talk forever, Alice. This has been so helpful, but I need to wrap up.
Yeah.
What would you say is your best social media tip? If you could summarize short, like what is your best social media tip for the listeners?
Well, I would say that it's since we've been talking about strategic planning, I would bring in something from our strategic plan, and it's a belief that success does not demand perfection. And I would say that if I think that I would say I focus a lot on excellent content. Like the things we put out are very high quality. So when I say success does not demand perfection, it doesn't mean that I'm putting out things that are not high quality or to experience excellence in our district. But what I would say is, like, as a one-person department, you might get photos that maybe aren't the top quality photos, but they still work and they still get. If you can do really well with your writing and getting people hooked into seeing that, that might make an impact. I would also say I think there's a lot of pressure, and we talked about this in the Instagram group the other day of like real time posting or daily, like that real daily posting. So I average, about 2 posts a day on social media during the school year is my goal. But I would say I I tell people all of the time, good stories don't expire. So good
Yes.
story, if it's a good story, like it's okay to take your time. It's okay. Like this, if you need some time to write that post, it does. You're not. I know sometimes you want to beat people to posting something, and so like there are things that like maybe there's a really high level award that happened in your district that you want to be that first person to say that. Well, then I would say in your social media weekly calendar, like okay, you got to move some stuff around and put that first. But I would say if it's a good story, good stories don't have expirations, and like take
Mhm.
the time to do a good job with it and don't feel this perfectionist pressure that you have to get it out today. I have to, sacrifice time with my family so I can get these pictures posted of open house. Like It's okay. Open house pictures can go up tomorrow too. Like if you can have a good story and really high quality, they'll still do really well.
Yeah. I love it. Oh my gosh. Good stuff, Alice. This has been so helpful. We're going to link everybody to your Mahtomedi social media pages so they can check those out. But if they have more questions for you, especially with the way you're getting content from staff and students and all of that, what's the best way to stay connected to you?
If you like to like socially connect, we can connect on LinkedIn. So my first name is ALICE, and then my last name is SEUFFERT.
Okay.
Um, and so I would say that's you can connect with me that way. But email, of course, is an option, and my email is ALICE.SEUFFERT@ISD832.net.
Okay. And we're going to put both those links in the show notes. I know that you're going to have people out there. We're going to have you back because I think there's some things that we hit on briefly that I'd like to even dig deeper in. Thank you for doing what you do. And thanks for sharing all of your tips today. And we're going to also make sure to get a bunch of links. We're going to share that communication newsletter. I want to see that Taylor Drift post and those open house, both the photos and the reels. We'll get that for you too, as well as the care closet. So everybody check out the show notes because we're going to get you links to that. And then follow Mahtomedi for some great inspiration. Alex, thank you for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm really grateful to be a member of your group. It really has impacted my job as the communications director at our school district. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. We have a great group. If you want to check that out, check it out on my website, socialschoolforedu.com. We're here not to take more time. We're here to make social media easier so you can have time to do all of your other things that you need to do. But great talking with you, Alice, and everybody listening. We will see you next week with another great guest. Have a great day and keep telling those stories. Bye, Alice.
Bye.